the practice must become constant. Huh? It also must come to be complete. Again, as I often say, not formally perfect. Don't worry about that, but simply complete in the sense that there is nothing apart from it, nothing outside of it. This becomes clear as the practice deepens and matures and we find ourselves in, for example, difficult, demanding, challenging situations in the world. Yes, here is the real dojo, the real place of practice. We find that we cannot step out of the practice. We can't leave the practice. In the beginning, it may have seemed impossible to enter, to get in. How do I do this? The more I think about it, the more confused I get. But as you give yourself properly and correctly in the practice, and this includes living a life in accord with this. You can't just do something on the cushion for a while and then go out and live a deluded, follow your delusions. You must take that practice into the world until it becomes clear, that constancy, continuous practice must be worked on and honed over and over again until the completeness is clear, recognized, undeniable, without a shadow of a doubt. Before, I couldn't seem to even get into it, to scratch the surface. My mind was just going in endless circles. If you're practicing correctly, it doesn't take long to confirm, oh, this is the practice. I'm not going towards something. I am, however imperfectly, coming from it. And this is where the practice takes a turn. This is, in a sense, where the practice begins in a new way, with a new foundation, so to speak. So, again, just reviewing, we must practice in a way that it comes to be constant, not something that we go into and out of. Doing this properly, it comes to be complete, the completeness that it is. It's not something that we are producing. Of course, in the beginning, this self-conscious returning to the practice, finding our mind wandering, yes, bringing it back, bringing it back. This is the value of genuine zazen, of an authentic koan. It keeps us locked in a very good way, you see. But this completeness that I'm talking about isn't something that Humpty Dumpty has all of his pieces back together again. Rather, it becomes clear, manifest, that the practice has always been, and always will be, complete. It does not need to be fabricated, contrived. Although again, the initial willful, self-conscious practice is necessary, not because the practice is something so difficult and high up in the air, but simply because our mind is used to escaping, wandering, diverting itself. So yes, as the sixth patriarch and the head monk. You remember the poem mentioned yesterday briefly, huh? The head monk's poem is often looked at as, oh, it's dualistic. It's not yet real Zen. Okay, that's halfway there. But the other half that you must not miss is that without that foundation, you probably won't be able to begin. It is not the end for sure, but that kind of what is called polishing the mirror. Oh, what a dualistic metaphor. It's also very valuable, but it will not get you there. That's the point of the Six Patriarchs poem, where he says, really, there's not a single thing. Where can the dust alight? There's not a contradiction at all. Continue that practice until it is constant. Recognize that it is complete in and of itself. It is not something that we need to fabricate, contrive, even perfect. No, it's always already here. It's the mind that is running away from it. Confirm it in your bones. There is no other way. Yesterday, I briefly mentioned the statement from the Diamond Sutra that struck this young illiterate who was going to become the Sixth Patriarch. This statement, mind arises without abiding, without getting stuck anywhere. It is not dead or lifeless at all. It is truly alive in a way that the ego self cannot be. It is just a reflection. But to be truly alive, yes, mind arises as it should. The six senses, the five senses and the mind, are fully of functioning and alive, in no way separate from the world out there. I am the world, and the world is me. This is not some kind of poetic license. This must be realized, this split between the self-delusion, and the world, self and other. That split is what you must split from. It's not real. Show me it. Where is it? Where is it? The more you look for it, the farther it recedes. Where is it? Once, it must come to its own end. But again, this statement, again from the Diamond Sutra, that stirred something in this young man. Mind arises without abiding. It doesn't get stuck anywhere, especially to itself. Then again, as I mentioned yesterday, eventually, when it was time for the fifth patriarch to have a successor, the poem of the head monk that talks about constant practice, yes, constant practice, polishing that mirror, not letting one speck of dust alight. Again, without that poem, the sixth patriarch, the guy who became the sixth patriarch, his poem would have no place. But as a natural response, not really denying or rejecting that practice, but showing it at its very source, where it really must be coming from. This is how we polish. How? Really, there's not one single thing. Where can the dust alight? We can say, well, this is the deeper Zen teaching, but they go hand in hand. Don't take one to deny or reject the other. They go hand in hand. Unless you've come to the point where there is no difference whatsoever between those two, you have not arrived at the teaching the sixth patriarch is bringing up. And this is in some ways the basis of Chinese Zen, which became Korean Zen, which became Japanese Zen. It's fundamental. You all know the koan that developed out of this. Being chased by the sangha, the community of monks, who was upset that this know-nothing, illiterate layman, he hadn't even been ordained, he wasn't even a monk, had been given the robe and the bowl of the fifth patriarch. The fifth patriarch, knowing, despite this very mature sangha, that there was going to be these kinds of conflicts, told the newly made fifth patriarch, this illiterate know-nothing, go, hide yourself for some years. Then when it's time, your light will shine. He knew the danger. But a very strong monk who had been a soldier eventually caught up with him. And the now newly made sixth patriarch put the robe and the bowl on a rock and said, the Dharma is not to be taken by force. If you want these symbols, these outward symbols, there they are, take them. Very significant psychological insight here. The monk grabbed the robe and the bowl, very strong man, not a very heavy bowl or robe, but he couldn't move it. He could not take it. Have you come to that point in your practice? As the commentaries make clear, this is where the great doubt manifests. Then finally, in all humility, he was a rather arrogant man. Again, he had been a military leader before becoming a monk. He turned in all humility and said to the sixth patriarch, I've not come for the robe and the bowl, I've come for the Dharma. Please, shed your light. Here is where this famous koan first appears. The sixth patriarch says, without thinking good, without thinking bad, right here and now, what is your original face? Sometimes it's rendered as, show me your original face, which is good. Actually, the classical Chinese says, your original face. By the way, the original face, honrai no menmoku in Japanese, this is the same word as originally there is not a thing. Honrai muichimotsu, originally, really, right here and now, it should be rendered. There is not one thing. That same word is used here. Honrai no menmoku, your original, your real countenance, face. A very clear and concrete Chinese image, quite different from most of Indian Buddhism. Right here and now, show me your real face. Remember what the monk had just been through. Angry and frustrated that this know-nothing had ran off with the robe and the bowl. Finally getting there, trying to take it and realizing that he can't even lift this having a true change of heart, begging to be taught the true Dharma, and then all of a sudden, forget good, forget evil. Where's your original face? Show me your real face. Very appropriate teaching at that moment. And it said that the monk awakened. He awakened through that. Huh? But you see how this is all one thread. As mentioned yesterday, it's largely a legend, but it's a very good one. Huh? You see the thread running through, huh? Mind arises without abiding. Really, there is not one thing. Show me your real face. Again, actually it says before the birth of your parents or before your parents gave birth to you. The Chinese can be read either way because the subject is missing. It doesn't matter though. The point is before mind arises, before there is mother and father, causes and conditions, this and that, illusion and enlightenment. Before the mind has made such distinctions, what is it? Show me that face and you're free, you're home free. It's a wonderful koan and it sums up in a way the teaching of the sixth patriarch, as legendary as it is. It is a valuable teaching for us here and now, isn't it? What needs to be made clear now is that this, without abiding, this real face, this not a thing, not one thing, is not a matter of being or presence here and now, awareness. This is where Pop Zen has gotten stuck, has gotten completely lost, and trivialized Zen, turned it into almost a kind of a toxic poison where people are just going around repeating these Zenistic phrases with no realization. It's really a shame because it deludes and misleads others. People spend years, even decades, sitting there, going around in their head with all of these words and sayings and imitations. It's pathetic, it's tragic to see people spend their lives doing this. I urge you, do not waste your life in vain in these dreams and delusions. Zen is not talking about mind in the sense that you are thinking of it. Mind arises. What mind is that? Until you've made that clear for yourself in your bones, not in your mind, it will just continue wavering, changing from one thing into the next. It is not a matter of being, of presence, of awareness, of mind in the ordinary sense. I would have to say it has nothing to do with that. That's why there are so many expressions in Zen that clearly undercut this delusion. You look at the record of Linqi, the Linqi Lu, or the Rinzai Ruku, the record of Rinzai. It's full of exclamations that undercut attachment to anything, even the most holy of holies. An expression that I like used in Zen is destroy the muddy hell called subject and object, both empty. This is a profound teaching. Self and other, self and world, the dharmas and the self are both empty. Stamp out the dead end rabbit hole of here and now. You see what's being said. Through the practice, it becomes clear, Self and other are both empty. The very distinction itself cannot be sustained. Here and now is where we must practice from. And yet, it very clearly says, now destroy the muddy hell that you get stuck in, called subject and object, both empty, if you turn it into that. Stamp out the dead end rabbit hole of here and now. This is a very precious teaching for Zen in the world today. Do not get stuck abiding in being, let alone some kind of a mind that you envision, however clear and cloudless it may seem. It will not do. Do you really think that's what the sixth patriarch meant when he said, really, there is not one thing? Leon and everyone, I'd like to thank you all. Many of you have been here through several of these weekend sits, and I see familiar faces from the many other online meetings, Zazooms as I call them, Zoom Zazens, and other encounters that we've been having. It's wonderful to see us continuing the practice as best we can where we are. We can do what needs to be done right where we are. You do not lack one thing. You have a body and you have a mind. That's more than enough. All you need to do is sit right through the bottom of it. When you realize this is what must be done in this life, it's not a hobby. When you realize this is what must be done in this life and you are ready to give yourself to it, I'm here for you, even if it's virtual online. We can be in touch through Skype or Zoom or whatever. Original FaceTime, as I call FaceTime. If that need arises, don't hesitate to get in touch. But the basic work must be done by each and every one of us. And you have everything you need to do it. Maybe a little more than enough. A little fine tuning can be helpful. Don't forget the six patriarchs' teaching. Really, there is not one thing. And don't forget the head monk's teaching. Continually, constantly polish that mirror until the one reflects the other without a shadow. I'd like to leave plenty of time for questions from out of the practice. Thank you again for listening so intently.
Marta Bañuelos.
Martha?
Hello, Jeff. Jeff, in this same sense, there's nothing to be destroyed. It's okay.
You mean, for example, in your practice, there's nothing to destroy?
Yeah.
Yes, there's nothing you even need to create.
Okay. Thank you.
It's precisely that mind that seeks to destroy, not thinking good, not thinking evil, to eat the bad stuff and maybe create more of the good stuff. And eventually it's that very mind that needs to be put to rest, if I put it that way. Huh? That needs to be let go. It's true. You don't need to destroy a thing. Do you need to destroy a delusion? It's a delusion. Let it go and it's gone. It can't maintain itself. It can't sustain itself. It can't remain unless you give it room. But at the same time, you don't need to create something either. A new, freer, fresher mind without a thing. You don't need to destroy a thing. And you don't need to create a thing either. Right there, give yourself to the practice, Martha. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Max,
Hi, Jeff.
Oh, there you go.
When you encounter makyo, how do you not let it repeat in a sense of fear?
For those who don't know, makyo is a Japanese term for a kind of a delusion. At the end, did you say fear?
Yes.
Okay. It's very common in practice, especially when we are giving ourselves intensely, for example, during a retreat, that altered states of consciousness, these kind of makyo, a dream-like state, a fantasy type, sometimes very, very frightening, sometimes very, very wonderful. Either way, they are called makyo, or a kind of a delusion. They occur, they appear, they happen. When they do, see it. It's clear that, Max, you already realize in some sense that it's a makyo, right? When you see it, oh, this is, yeah, I'm glad I'm prepared. I heard about this. In this sense, study, reading can be helpful. Oh, this is what they're talking about. Now I know. Woo. But if you've already recognized that it's a makyo, then you're almost out of the woods already. Huh? Recognize it as what it is. And if, as you say, a kind of fear arises, here it is. What is the source of that fear? Forget the makyo. Where does that fear come from? What are you really afraid of, Max?
Elimination
Of what?
of self.
And what is that? See through there, Max, so you just keep going in the same circles. Huh? What you're afraid of is what is already gone. Isn't it?
Can't be sure.
Well, continue on until you are, okay? But don't be afraid of that fear. There's something there you need to see. Open up to it. You think, if I go all the way, I'm going to lose myself. See it for what it is. See it for what it is. When it becomes clear, Max, the only thing you need to destroy, if I borrow Martha's words, or get rid of, is the self-delusion. That is the delusion of self and other. That very separation. The only thing that needs to be gotten rid of, if I use that word, is the split. And it's not real to begin with. It is what keeps you separated from the other, from the world, and from who you really are. When you really see it through, Max, it must be let go. It's not real in the first place. And it's not that then you lose yourself. Well, you do lose yourself in any spiritual tradition, Max, face it, in any genuine spiritual tradition, without doubt. There must be the death of the self, right? Name one spiritual tradition that doesn't speak clearly and directly to that. No. Can't escape from that, Max. But what is it that needs to be let go? The delusion, Max. The delusion. Why are you still holding on to it?
I guess it's like not wanting to let go of the training wheels.
Well, keep them on as long as you want. When you're ready, take them off. When you realize you don't need them anymore, take them off.
Is there just more effort or less effort?
No,
No effort.
no. You're still dealing with effort. That's why the fear appears. Huh? It has nothing to do with effort or lack of effort. You've given yourself. I've known you for some years, Max. You've come here to the Hermitage. We practiced together in Montreal. Huh? Well, you're dedicated. You're dedicated. But something still remains in you that you're afraid of giving up. I'm not here to take it away from you. Until you see that split must be let go, because it's what's keeping you from who you really are. It's keeping you from the other, isn't it? It's keeping you from the world. You die. You die, but what comes out of that? It's as if all of the six senses, our experience shuts down at some point. If we're practicing properly, in a very good way, it shuts down. It must. But when that turns over, please, nobody's here to push you, but you have to see into the nature of that fear, or it will keep playing with you until your death. That's what you really should be afraid of, living the rest of your life in that delusion.
Working on it.
When you're ready, when you're ready.
Catherine?
Thank you, Jeff. What you told Max, it touched me deeply because it was exactly my problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Max, for having the courage, despite your fear, to raise the question. You see how much help it is, not just for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. Thank you so much.